Welcome to Hoystory on Air, Season 2, Episode 6. It is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 19th, Monday, 2026. Welcome to the show. Doing two stories today. There's lots of videos here, so I have to mute my mic when I play a video, and sometimes I forget to unmute it, and I'm getting better at that. But if you see some cuts later on in the video after I'm done with it, it's because I forgot to turn the mic back on. One of the subjects I wanted to talk about today, it's going to have to happen tomorrow or the next day or sometime in the future, hopefully very soon, is the situation in Iran. It has gotten worse. Tens of thousands have been killed by the regime. It sounds like they're bringing in fighters from Iraq and whatnot to massacre their own civilians. Trump's red line has been crossed, and he doesn't appear to be doing squat about it. What Trump does appear to be interested in is Greenland. This is the headline from the New York Times. Trump announces new European tariffs in Greenland standoff. Allies outraged. The president escalated his drive to take charge of the Danish territory, targeting Denmark and 7 other European countries with a 10% rate. From the article, President Trump is now claiming that one reason he is pushing to acquire Greenland is he didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize, according to a text message he sent to Norway's Prime Minister over the weekend. Jonas Gahr Store, Norway's leader, received the text message on Sunday, an official in the Prime Minister's office said on Monday. Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars, plus I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America, Mr. Trump wrote in the message, which was first published by PBS. This is insane. It is insane. We've already got troops on Greenland. We've got a small base. We used to have many more bases on Greenland at the height of the Cold War, especially. We have treaties. We can put as many troops and whatnot there that we want, really. Norway's not going to care about any. It reminds me of one of the things my grandmother used to say, and it was on a different subject, but I think it applies here. Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? It's why take over Greenland? There's no reason to. If they wanted it, if Denmark wanted to sell it, okay, fine. Not opposed to that source. But this idea that give it to us now, or we're going. We'll get on it for a little further. So this is over at National Review. Andrew Studiford, Greenland digging an even deeper hole. From that Truth Social post that Trump put up, starting February 1st, all the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland, will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States. On June 1st, it'll be increased to 25%. The tariff will be due and payable until such time a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. So much for affordability, so much for allies, so much for national sovereignty. Yes. This is unseemly, to say the least. This is embarrassing. This is stupid. It'd be nice if someone told him that. Someone made the comment that, like the first term a president gets, they get their A team, and then people leave and they get their B team, their second term, going in their second term. And if the vice president succeeds the president, well, they get kind of the C team, the third stringers. Trump never really got the A stringers because he wasn't your typical Republican the first time he went into office. He got mostly B team. Then he lost, and now it seems like the only people around him are the C team or worse. I used to have a lot of respect for J.D. Vance. That has evaporated when he decided to become MAGA, which seems nowadays MAGA requires you losing part of your brain, like has to be turned off or trashed or something. But this Kiel Institute for World Economy came out with a brief. It says America's own goal. That is a soccer term. That is when you screw up and you kick the ball into your own net. Who pays the tariffs? They've got a report out. Came out today, I believe. 2025 U.S. tariffs are an own goal. Foreign exporters absorb only 4% of the tariff burden. The remaining 96% is passed through to U.S. buyers. U.S. customs revenue surged by approximately $200 billion, not the $18 trillion that Trump was touting a few weeks ago. Number made up purely out of thin air that no one tries to defend. It's a joke. Tax paid almost entirely by Americans. Indian export customs data validates our findings. When facing U.S. tariffs, Indian exporters maintained their prices and reduced shipments. They did not eat the tariff. U.S. tariff policy is Sheriff Bart in Blazing Saddles. It is him holding, this is, don't make me kill myself. Don't make me shoot me. But Trump does that and pulls the trigger all the time. I mean, this is insane. We can hope, and again, this is something that the Congress could solve immediately if any of them had backbones. None of them do. The Republicans don't have backbones when the Republicans in the White House. Democrats don't have backbones when the Democrats in the White House. We seem to really want a king, which is sad. This is back to Andrew Studefer's piece. He says, in effect, these sovereign nations are being threatened with a fine for sending a very small, and all these nations have sent troops. I think the British sent one guy. They sent a liaison of some sort. For sending a small number of troops to an ally's territory with the agreement of that ally. Trump writes, this force has been sent to Greenland, a sacred piece of land. It's not, for purposes unknown. In reality, he says, this tiny presence is designed to act as a symbolic tripwire to deter a forceful U.S. annexation of Greenland. If you're going to disobey a direct order because you think it's illegal, invading Greenland, I'd say that's one you'd go for. Stand on that one. Sadly, I don't think the seditious six or whatever, the Democrats who put out that video earlier this year, I don't think any one of them have had the cojones to say this. It's always something amorphous and we want to preen and posture and not take a stand, take a stand but not take a real stand. And then there's Republicans. Ted Cruz went on Maria Bartiromo's Sunday morning, I think it's called Sunday Morning Future show. Maria doesn't impress me really as a journalist. I mean, yes, she's done better than I have, but principles, asking tough questions, standing up for, this is not something she does, at least often enough, and certainly not with Republicans. Ted Cruz, when he ran for president in 2016, I was a supporter of his, not anymore. I think when Trump, I'm not going to say slandered, insulted is the word, insulted Cruz's wife, Cruz should have invited him out behind the hall and punched him in the nose. And then maybe Cruz would have gotten even more votes. Maybe Cruz would have been president. But again, lack of cojones. So here is Cruz on Sunday Morning Future show with a little history and ignoring the elephant in the room. Let's take a listen.
When it comes to Greenland, I want to commend President Trump for being single-mindedly focused on America first, on U.S. economic interest and U.S. national security interest. I believe it is overwhelmingly in America's national interest to acquire Greenland. A year ago, as chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee, I chaired a hearing on the benefits to the United States of America of acquiring Greenland. Now, some folks in the press, they clutch their pearls and they say, well, what do you mean acquiring Greenland? How could that happen? Look, the whole history of America has been a history of acquiring new lands and new territories. Whether you go back to Thomas Jefferson making the Louisiana Purchase, about half of the United States of America today,
Yep.
or you go back to America purchasing Alaska from Russia. You want to talk about, at the time they called it Seward's Folly, it turned out to be an extraordinarily consequential purchase. Greenland has massive rare earth minerals and critical minerals. There are enormous economic benefits to America, but it's also, like Alaska, it is located on the Arctic, which is a major theater for potential military conflict with either Russia or China. It's also critical for the Golden Dome and defending America from potential missile strikes. I commend the president for focusing on American national security.
Yeah, because where it is geographically can help stop any missiles fire coming from adversaries like Russia and China. Senator, it's great to catch up. We so appreciate your time. We'll be watching you.
That's something that you can, okay, it's got rare earth minerals. You think that American companies can't make deals with Norway and Greenland to exploit those? There's nothing stopping them. We're allies, or at least we were till you guys went on this joke of we're going to take over the island. From a defense standpoint, we don't need to own Greenland to put bases. I mean, we had at least a half dozen, probably closer to a dozen bases on Greenland during the Cold War. We can reconstitute those anytime we want. We've got treaties that say we can. It'd be nice if we had some Republicans with a backbone who would go up there to the White House and tell Trump to knock it off. Because frankly, and after the January 6th thing, I was all for them. You know, I questioned a little bit whether they had the power to impeach Trump after he'd left office on January 20th, noon. But I was all for impeaching him so he couldn't run again before the 20th. If Congress had gotten its butt in gear and cared enough about it, we wouldn't be here now. We'd probably have President DeSantis, which would be 1,000,000 times better than what we're dealing with here. But I don't know how far the crazy's got to go. Because when he was, last year when he was just, making, comments about it, I thought, Trump's just a blowhard. And he is a blowhard. But at this point, somebody needs to tell him to stop. It's obviously not going to be Ted Cruz. And maybe you lose MAGA and maybe you don't get reelected, but Trump's going to cause us even more problems than we deserve. And we deserve some problems. Again, I don't care whether you elect Republicans or you elect Democrats. The voters get what they vote for, good and hard. And this kind of crazy is not helping. So I don't know what else to say. Trump needs to someone. There are no adults in the room. Some adult in the room needs to tell him to stop. The other big story, and this is a journalism story. It's a media story. It's a crazy protester story. So I'm going to start out with a video of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz addressing the press. This occurred, I believe, shortly before New Year's, because he refers to midnight masses, I'm guessing in anticipation of the new year. So this happened, late December, very late December last year. Take a listen.
So I would fully expect, and we are preparing for, an influx of more agents, more of the very visible public theatrics of the raids, of the harassments, and you got faith leaders here. I would not put it past this administration to target midnight mass services amongst folks going to worship, because that's who they are.
Yeah, that's who they are. Those ICE agents. They're gonna go into churches and protest and arrest people. And well, it happened Sunday. Problem wasn't ICE agents. Wasn't. I'm going to show you this video. This, I think it's about 4 minutes long, 4.5 minutes long. Skip ahead 5 minutes in this episode here if you don't want to watch it. Basically, it's kind of disgusting, frankly. But here's this is a church in Minnesota that apparently one of the pastors is not the lead pastor, but a pastor is listed on the, I say the name of the church was. I had it here. Let's look. The church was Cities Church. One of the pastors, not the lead pastor again, is apparently a director for ICE in the upper Midwest. So that makes the church that he is part of apparently fair game. Interesting standard, especially the day before the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Again, take a look at this if you can. Otherwise, skip ahead 5 minutes.
Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good! Don't shoot! 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 Shame! Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people? Where are you? You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities? I'm not going to comment. You have no comment, exactly. Renee Good! Renee Good! All these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters. You come here to a man wearing a suit. Is a preacher? Did Jesus wear a suit? Did Jesus profit off the words? No! Jesus would dine with immigrants. Do not touch me. Touch me again and see what happens. Hey, you can't. You are a fake Christian. Why are you not standing with your Somali and Latino communities? Why do I not see you out at Whipple every day protesting this attack on humanity? Where are you? You're sinners. You're pretending to be Christians. But we know you live an easy life, don't you? A very easy life while people are starving. Shame. Out now. Out now. Living real comfortable while the people starve. Living real comfortable while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're all living real comfortable, aren't you? Shame on you. Do something. Stand with the Somalis. Stand with the Latinos. Quit ignoring this injustice. He wears a suit and tie and he hangs out with Kristi Noem. How is that a Christian? You're supposed to accept all immigrants, are you not? Why are you not going down to Whipple and joining us in protest against this inhumanity? You claim to be a Christian. Act like one.
This is like a perfect encapsulation of the meme that goes around about how you don't believe anything about Christianity, but I'll tell you how you should behave as a Christian, and I'll tell you what your values should be. They curiously align with my values, and I'm an atheist. It's kind of despicable. It's kind of odious. It's out of line, to say the least. We'll get to the impacts of genius here recording himself. Children not being placed in concentration camps. Did Jesus wear a shirt and a tie? No, Jesus didn't wear a shirt and a tie because Jews in the first century didn't dress this way. If you hang out with Kristi Noem, you can't be a Christian. You can't be a dog lover, really, if you hang out with Kristi Noem. But Christian, we'll get to some more of this. So the big impact here, or the big story here, was they had independent journalists, and apparently this guy here classifies independent journalist. And I guess in the loosest sense of the word, technically, he is acting as an independent journalist, but he's not unbiased. He's not trying to present both sides. He's an advocate. He is and there's a place in the world for that, but let's not pretend that, journalist, and that makes you unbiased or holier than thou, or that you have standards. These people have no standards. So among the independent journalists they got to come out with them is former CNN anchor Don Lemon. Don is a real piece of work. So here is some video from Don's live feed. He live streamed this whole thing. You'll see there's little notes at the bottom occasionally about it being dropped because he doesn't have a good streaming connection from time to time. So this is the way it was broadcast. It's the best quality we've got. But let's take a listen to Don Lemon and his interview skills.
What did you tell them? I told that David Easterwood is a pastor here, and he also serves as the director of the field office for ICE in St. Paul. How? David Easterwood.
Are you sure that he's a...
Yes, yeah. City Church, yes. And that's why we're here, demanding justice for Renee Good and letting them know that this will not stand. They cannot pretend to be a house of God while harboring someone who is directing ICE agents to wreak havoc upon our community and who killed Renee Good, who almost killed a 6-month-old baby. Enough is enough. I am a reverend on top of being a lawyer and an activist. So I come here in the power of the Almighty God for righteousness, truth, and justice.
Is this the gentleman you were explaining to?
No, he's one of us.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's Don Lemon. She's also a pastor. That is Nikema Levy Armstrong. She's a Black Lives Matter lawyer, and she's a pastor, apparently. I made the comment that I was a little surprised that Don Lemon didn't burst into flames as he crossed into the church, as usually happens with demons. I'm not sure that's true either, but it seems like it should be true. Nikema Levy Armstrong, one of the organizers of this, she has helpfully for prosecutors, and we'll get to that a little bit later too, listed a bunch of people here who she thinks who helped her out with this thing. So they can just copy and paste this into the criminal charges. Great job. Don Lemon goes on to interview the pastor, and this is where I'm offended and angered at this entire situation, this entire protest, going into a church during their services and disrupting their services. That is odious. It's something they'd never do at a mosque because they're a bunch of cowards. It's not that they think it's wrong. It's that they're a bunch of cowards. But Don Lemon goes up to interview the pastor. And again, the audio in this little interview here is not synced with the video. That's, again, because Don Lemon's streaming connection was not good. But let's take another look and listen to this.
Our church had gathered for worship, which we do every Sunday, and we were interrupted by this group of protesters. Yeah. We asked them to leave, and they obviously have not left. Yeah. So.
What do you think of this?
I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship. So.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Yeah. We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me though.
We're here to worship Jesus. Yes. That's why we're here. Yeah. Okay. That's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a Christian?
No one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle what happened?
Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship. Yeah. We're here to worship. Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I kind of question Don Lemon's Christianity. We'll see. I mean, just for the record, I don't think Donald Trump's a Christian. This is not a very Christ-like way to be behaving, Don Lemon. Among the idiotic things Don Lemon has said here, says, well, we have a First Amendment. You do not have a First Amendment right to walk into Don Lemon's kitchen and protest. You don't have a First Amendment right to walk into a church and disrupt it and protest. Don Lemon, and this is the thing that enrages me and angers me the most. I do not suffer fools lightly. Don Lemon is a fool. He is. He's an odious fool. Just for the record, that was Jonathan Parnell, lead pastor at City's Church. And note at the very end, he asked Don Lemon to leave. Okay? Just keep that in mind. So this happens Sunday. It gets all over social media. And DOJ Civil Rights Chief, this is Harmeet Dillon, blasts Don Lemon for covering anti-ICE protest inside church. This is an interesting way to phrase it. It's like he just showed up. There are reasons why, even as a journalist, you incur potential issues when you trespass and when you go into places that are not public places, and when you are asked to leave and don't. This is an NBC News article, so you kind of get that sort of framing. Harmeet Dillon said that nobody should think in the United States that they are going to be able to get away with this after anti-ICE protesters halted Sunday service at a St. Paul church. Dillon said Sunday afternoon on X that the Justice Department was investigating potential violations of the Federal FACE Act by these people desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers, referring to the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. The law, enacted in 1994, prohibits interfering with or obstructing people from seeking reproductive health services or exercising religious freedom at places of worship. In her interview with Johnson, this is Benny Johnson online, Dillon also mentioned the possibility of invoking the Enforcement Act of 1871, also known as the Ku Klux Klan Act, which was passed during Reconstruction to protect Black American civil rights. Legal insurrection, similar sort of report on this. Don Lemon getting potentially prosecuted under the KKK Act is chef's kiss. What can I say? So this comes out. So Don Lemon is a little worried. So he's got his phone. He's going to do a brief message here to tell, blame MAGA for this. They're coming after me. I'm just doing journalism. Well, not really, but let's take a listen.
MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true. So let me just make it clear, because this assistant attorney general, I don't know, what's her name? Something Hammett, Dillon or whatever. So I have no affiliation to that organization. I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests. Once the protest started in the church, we did an act of journalism, which was report on it and talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, members of the church, and members of the organization. That's it. It's called journalism. First Amendment, all that stuff. For all of you people who believe in the First Amendment, absolutist, there you go. So why don't you talk to the actual person who is in charge of the organization and whose idea it was to have the protests at the church before you start blaming me for stuff for which you have no idea. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
It's great that he goes to hide behind the First Amendment, considering he demonstrated to the lead pastor there he doesn't know what the heck the First Amendment is all about. It's perfect that way. I mean, you gotta love it. Stick with it there, Don. Speaking of, again, crimes, Don Lemon goes in there with the protesters. He is asked, and you can go online and you can look up Don Lemon. You can find his YouTube channel. You can look at his live broadcast. You can find this one yesterday, and look at the timestamps. The very end of that interview with the lead pastor I showed you happens at 52:33 in his broadcast. He is asked by the pastor to leave. Does he say, I've been asked by the person in charge of this property to leave the property, I will leave? He does not leave. He walks around. He asks you to subscribe to his channel while he's standing in there. And then he goes and interviews another parishioner. And he finally exits the building 6.5 minutes later at 59:07 timestamp on his video. That's not leaving promptly, especially since he did some other stuff in between. That's trespassing. You were asked to leave and you did not, and you continued being in a place you have no legal right to be in. I didn't know about these people. I wasn't in charge. I'm not involved. I'm not part of this. Really? Well, problem is, he's got his videos up. He's got his live stream going. Let's take a look at him explaining what's going to be happening an hour earlier.
Into Minneapolis a little bit ago and did some reconnaissance on the ground, speaking to an organization there that's gearing up for resistance and protest. I've been pleasantly surprised to see the community coming together. Diverse community. If you see this, when we first pulled up, we're like, wait a minute, which operation are we at? And as it turns out, because we were like, well, this is kind of MAGA coded, right? Saw the American flag or whatever, but these are resistance protesters. They're planning an operation that we're going to follow them on. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up. and it's Takima Armstrong, and she has been doing this since George Floyd, Dante Wright, and others, where they surprise people, catch them off guard, and hold them to account. And so that's what we're doing here. And then after we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, I can't tell you where they're going.
That's video pulled from Media Research Channel, Media Research Center. Doesn't sound, it sounds a little bit like he's with them. This is not your typical, news report that you would see on the local news channel. They've been called ahead of time. We're going to go and confront. They're going to go and confront someone. We're going to tag along and watch. Don Lemon is so aloof and so not part of this group that. Wait a second. What is this?
Lemon is on the front lines right now.
Thank you.
Follow Don Lemon. He ain't on CNN no more, so he right here in the front line.
Independent, yeah.
Tell them to come get some coffee.
Hey, Don Lemon got some coffee for y'all.
And donuts.
And donuts. And he ain't talking about police.
You want some coffee?
He want some coffee. I trust Don Lemon coffee.
You want some
He
coffee?
ain't finna poison.
Thank you.
Get that
I
coffee
love some
from him.
coffee. Thank you, Don.
Okay,
Great
good
to see you
job.
here. Thank
Look at
you.
Derek.
Perfect.
I'm trying to think of the last time, as a reporter, I brought people I was covering coffee and donuts. Now, I don't actually see any donuts. Dawn says there's some donuts, so apparently there's probably donuts. All I see here is coffee, but never happened. I'm trying to remember. I can't imagine that being endorsed by any of your standard old media journalistic institutions. If you're, again, trying to separate yourself from them. Don is trying to separate himself from them because these people hopefully will be going to jail. They violated the Federal FACE Act. We'll get to what that typically means a little bit later. But now he's trying to distance himself. He also went on another podcast. I believe this was earlier today. Just so you know what kind of a human being Don Lemon is, this podcast is the host here. She never says anything, which frankly is a testament to the person who edited this, put it together, because it's usually tough to get this woman to shut up. Her name is Jennifer Welch. She has been likened to the left's Joe Rogan. She's not. She's not nearly that good. She's not nearly that open-minded for good or ill. I've seen some other stuff she's done. She's an awful, affluent, white, urban, female liberal. But let's hear what Don has to say about his reporting.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand that I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America.
Race card played. Gay card played. He's accusing, he interviewed the pastor. What did the pastor say? We're here to worship God. We're that's why we're here. He's protecting he wants to protect his flock. These protesters get up in their face. And you saw that video. There are people who are just, what the heck's going on here? I'm sure those people did not feel safe. And that was the goal of the protest too. It's not we want to confront them. These aren't real Christians. I'm sorry. There are zero. If Don first discovered where they were going when they pulled up to the church, there is no way that anyone can determine if these are real Christian, or if they agree with, whatever your version of Christianity is, by looking at the people inside the church. I've never known that to be the case. When I've moved to a new town, I've looked for churches throughout my life. I'm looking at websites. I'm looking at what literature they put out about what they believe. Don Lemon has done none of that. He is proclaiming these people to be white supremacists because they go to a church and one of the pastors works for ICE. That makes you a white supremacist for Don and Jennifer here. For those of you who watched that first protest video, here's a screen grab from it showing you some of the white supremacists in that church. Don't look very white supremacy. And here they have traumatized a young child, which is obviously the Christian thing to do, or not. But that's Don Lemon's Christianity. I wouldn't count on it to get you where you're going. This is a Daily Wire story. It says he could face criminal conspiracy charges over his involvement. Justice Department, get him. Get him. Get the organizer too. All these people belong in jail because they violated the FACE Act. And for those of you who think, oh, this is no big deal, one of the concerns, one of the things that got Trump elected, for good and ill, was the idea that we had a two-tier justice system, that the January 6th protesters were sentenced more harshly for what they did than any of the George Floyd riot protesters were ever sentenced for what they did. Was that if you protest, that if you are a liberal, you get one version of justice. If you are a Republican, you get another. And so we'll see how this works out, because recall there were abortion opponents, pro-lifers, who were charged under this same act during the Biden administration. And let's look at a couple of them. This is from the Catholic Voice news feed. 75-year-old Paulette Harlow was sentenced to 2 years in jail by Judge Colleen Collar-Cottley. Elderly pro-lifer's husband, concerned she might die in prison. Collar-Cottley commented that she hopes Harlow will make an effort to remain alive because it's a tenet of her religion. So we're going to sentence a 75-year-old to 2 years in jail and 36 months of supervised release after that. Another one of those protesters, 57 months in prison and 3 years supervision after that. 57 months, that's just short of 5 years. That's what pro-lifers got for violating this law. Let's see what happens with these people. They should get similar sentences. They're guilty of sin. It's you shouldn't even have to say alleged. It's right there. You're not allowed to go into churches and disrupt their religious observances with a protest. Contra genius Don Lemon, that is not First Amendment protected. It's not. And it's one of those, reminds me of that internet meme where what does it say that protests have to be peaceable? First Amendment right, we have First Amendment right to protest. Why they don't have to be peaceable? And it's the guy with the sandwich pointing to, the Constitution, whether it says the right to peacefully assemble. We'll see. Having said all that, I am going to close here with the meme that's going around that I enjoyed most talking about this issue. It's a Vince McMahon of WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, federally charging a black man with the KKK Act on Martin Luther King Day. I don't expect that to come down today, tomorrow, sometime this week. Hopefully, nail him. Everybody in there deserves this, and they deserve to spend time in prison, and that would help the situation. That's kind of all I got for today. I am going to get this cooking to upload to various websites. I thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please tell your friends. Hey, I spent a good portion of the time ripping on Donald Trump, and some people don't like that. So if you don't like that, tell your friends that don't like Donald Trump so that they should watch this one. Again, gonna watch the national championship football game tonight. I'll be rooting for Indiana. We'll see how that goes. Please like, subscribe, watch, share, do all that stuff. And thank you for joining me.